Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Downsized. My name is Christopher Durham.
I'm Lorraine Durham.
And this is our regular opportunity to talk to some of the cool people out there in the GLP-1 space. Today, we've got another doctor in the house. So Dr. Beverly Tchang.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
So if you're new here and you don't know us, Lorraine and I have been on a GLP-1 adventure for the last 79 weeks. We started taking GLP-1s in September of 2023, and I've lost 103 pounds and am now on maintenance. So, Lorraine?
I've lost 54 pounds, and I am also now on maintenance. I'm 55 years old, mom of three, 5'5", went from 193 pounds to 140 pounds. I currently take a 5 milligram dose of compounded tirzepatide weekly for maintenance.
So we're just your regular suburban couple who happen to be overweight, found these medications, and it's changed our lives. And we started this YouTube channel to talk to people much smarter than us. That's where we have Dr. Tchang on the air with us today. I do want to preface it, of course, by saying we are not doctors. Dr. Beverly Tchang is a doctor, but she is not your doctor. So please make sure you speak to your doctor about your health care, your disease of obesity, your weight loss needs, and have them build something personally for you. So this is all just for educational purposes, nothing, no medical advice here. Does that work for you, Dr. Tchang?
Exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, awesome. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. That way you get alerted every time we do something like this. All right, Dr. Tchang. So introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Sure. So I am a physician at Weill Cornell in New York. Separately, I'm also the founder of an LLC called the Weightless Consulting. And this is a company that I founded specifically to expand the use and understanding of evidence-based obesity care, because we're recognizing more and more now that everyone is in this space, right? It's not just doctors, it's business people, it's scientists, it's influencers, everyone, your friends and family are wondering about what's the newest in weight management. And so my goal really is to help expand these conversations just like this, so that I can share the knowledge that we have in science and in clinical practice to anyone interested.
So although we talk about GLP-1s, you're really talking about the whole gamut of care for obesity.
Yeah, I think GLP-1s have become a household name because of social media and celebrities and mainstream media only for the past 5 years. But I've been in the obesity medicine space for longer than that, close to 10 years now. The first time that we used Ozempic, for example, was back in 2017. And even other medications like semaglutide or Trulicity, which you never hear about, but it still exists, preceded things like #Ozempic. And so we've been aware of the GLP-1s for a long time, and all of the pills, like the oral medication options that we use for weight loss, even before we even get to the GLP-1s.
So how did you get into obesity medicine?
Well, I think there was a point in my medical training, which if you know anything about medical training, it's like 10 years of your life dedicated to reading a lot of textbooks, taking care of patients under supervision. And I came to the realization, like many others, that we know a lot about diseases, right? Like the high blood pressure and high cholesterol and what have you. But what was so apparent in front of me, seeing all of my patients, regardless of what they were coming in for, whether it's high blood pressure or menopause or headaches, was that they all had this common denominator of weight issues. Mm-hmm. And what made me compelled to go into this field was the minimal amount of training that I had in it, And so I found myself Googling a lot, just like everyone else, Googling a lot about nutrition and physical activity and what is the best diet, which diet causes the most weight loss. And as many as you might find, once you start Googling, you never really get answers. You get a lot of hits. You get a lot of Google search hits and now AI hits. But the answers are still so confusing. And I think that's what really kind of motivated me to dive deep into the research to understand what's true. And more importantly, I guess for people, it's like, when is something true? I think what you can always find is research that backs up a claim, whether it's like the keto diet or a Mediterranean diet or the vegetarian diet. But what's more importantly is it true for you? And I think the personalization piece is something that it's hard to do alone. You have to do it with a team of experts or a doctor or some other level of support to understand, is what I'm reading, is it factual, and is it true for me?
So that that leads to your whole kind of evidence-based obesity care piece, right?
Yeah.
So how does that come to life in your teaching, in your clinical practice?
You know, as a doctor at an academic center, we're typically, I guess, pigeonholed into this idea of the ivory tower, right? We do a lot of clinical trials. We like to focus on research. We like to do what's really evidence-based at the highest level of the highest standards of care, highest quality that we can do. The problem is that it's not accessible to the population at large because there's only so many of us. The time we spend can be very intensive. The number of studies we do or questionnaires. One colleague I know has each of their patient fill out like 4 or 5 questionnaires, and they're each like 20 questions long. And it's all because we love information. We love to look at that data and follow people and all of that. But that level of investigation may not be necessary, and it can't be scaled to everyone who would actually need it. I think what we're finding nowadays is that that telehealth actually has allowed us to increase access and perhaps not affect outcomes as much. In other words, the amount of weight loss we can achieve, whether you see someone at a high-end academic center or concierge practice or an obesity dedicated specialist, versus some telehealth platforms that can also provide that level of lifestyle support, may still result in the weight loss and the quality of life improvements that you seek. So that, I think, is forcing all of us to make sure we're holding as best as we can to the evidence base, the clinical trials, but figuring out how do we translate that high level of care to a broader population without losing the quality. And so that's really where I am in that translation piece from the ivory tower to the sandbox. How do we make that happen?
Well, it's an interesting conversation because there's certainly been this gold rush of telehealth that have just chased GLP-1s and all of that. And we could argue over which ones are good, bad, or indifferent, right? But there's got to be some standard of care that is optimal, right? I don't know that anybody's actually gotten to that yet. I mean, is there research happening on that?
Yeah. And I'll flag a little bit here that if anyone wants my disclosures, they can go to my website, beverlychangmd.com, because I do advise for a telehealth company. I do also advise for manufacturers of the GLP-1s. So my biases are out there, okay? But yeah, I think you're asking an interesting question that we in the community have also been thinking about, of what's the standard, what's the minimum that anyone who prescribes weight loss medications should meet, right? And then on the other end, what's the best practices? What are the best practices for obesity care? I think academic medicine, the ivory tower type people like me, end up thinking about best clinical practices and automatically applying that as a standard, erroneously, actually. When this might be, your ideal situation, but but we should also have, as you say, the standard, the minimum, right? And I think places or, businesses that are looking to scale as much as possible need to focus. In an ideal world, they look at the ideal, but at the very minimum, look at the standard. We haven't yet established that is the issue in the obesity world, in the obesity science world. We have yet to establish standards, but I think we're going to be establishing with some high-level publications this year.
Well, thinking about, standards versus what should they be? Yeah, that brings to mind for me dosage, right? So a lot of people, when they first started these medicines, we took the starter dose for a month, and then we moved up the next month, and then we moved up the next month, and so on until we got to the top dose. And now maybe we see some people who just keep losing weight on the lower doses. So would you say the standard has been established, hasn't been established, or is it's a personalized?
The standard has been assumed based on clinical trials and manufacturer instructions.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find that many people who are just starting out, many providers, professionals, healthcare professionals who are just starting out to prescribe these medications, they don't know better and they just follow the instructions, right? There's no
Right.
wrongness in that.
Right.
I should also follow instructions when I put together an IKEA cabinet. Right? There's nothing wrong with following instructions.
Yeah.
But that's where we are, and I think we've assumed that those instructions are the standards, are like the minimum, bare minimum, and also best practices. And we haven't really teased that out yet. What we're realizing now, Lorraine, to your point, is actually what we're finding in the real world when people are using this is that the lowest dose may be all that you need. And there's no reason to really increase that dose further if we're already getting what we want from the lowest dose.
Yeah.
And it actually speaks to this kind of tenet of clinical practice that doctors are take an oath for, which is to do no harm. And that just means, if something's working, don't change it. That might increase the risk of side effects that might actually do harm for your patient. We like to use the lowest therapeutic dose is the terminology we use. We use the lowest therapeutic dose, the benefits, the place where we get the most benefits and the lowest risks. And so I think we're finally recognizing that too. So I bet in the future, the standard, the minimum is really just to check in every month. You don't have to make any changes, but check in every month to see, do changes need to be made? And then the best clinical practice will follow into, all right, well, at this month, we would expect this effect, right? We expect some change in food relationships, perhaps. Maybe by the third month, we expect to see at least 5% weight loss is a common threshold that we like to use, 5%. And then maybe we'll have goalposts at 6 months and 1 year and then 2 years and what happened thereafter.
Yeah.
Well, so I was excited to see in the Kager Simma research this last round, they reported they didn't force dosage up, which would seem to be maybe somebody who's designing that research was having this thinking.
They had a lot of options to kind of maintain the dose where it was depending on tolerability. And so I'm curious to see the full publications of the Kager Simma trials, because what we think is perhaps the dual nature of it, having both cagrilintide and semaglutide, really increases the risk of gastrointestinal side effects like nausea,
Right.
and that limits the tolerability so that they can't get to like the maximum efficacious doses. So I think we'd have to just wait and see.
Who knows how it's going to end up, for sure. Well, so let's talk about, because I know you're passionate about discussing obesity as a disease. So talk to me about that.
Yes. In 2013, the American Medical Association, our enormous body of professionals, put out a statement saying obesity is a disease?
2013.
2013. So 10 years ago.
And we're just now here.
This is what Oprah said, right? Oprah was like, nobody told me.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. We've been kind of saying this phrase, obesity is a disease, over and over again for 10 years. And no one hears us, right? No, it takes a while for people to hear us. It's like a star in the galaxy. It's like light years away, and finally it's reaching us. So 10 years later, obesity is a disease is reaching us. And it's interesting because even today we do these academic brain mental exercises of like, well, what makes it a disease, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the fact of the matter is I think that from a science perspective, we have a very clear definition, right? It's a condition that it is caused by a change, by something. There's like an environmental or a genetic thing that changes you.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes you from what's normal. Okay. And we can always talk what should normal really be, but it changes you far enough from normal to cause a problem, cause harm. Okay. And in this scenario of obesity, it's really something, the genetics, the environment, has affected our body's weight regulation system to a point that we've accumulated excess weight so much that it causes harm. And that harm manifests in so many ways for different people, right? It could be truly physical harm, just the weight on your joints, or even if you want to extrapolate to like the social context of what is it like to be living in a larger body and the mental and psychological aspects of that, burdens of that. And then there are also the metabolic effects, of course, where obesity can increase your blood pressure, increase your glucose, increase your risk for diabetes, et cetera. And so the harm piece is pretty clear and something that I think every patient can share with us. And so we have been saying for decades now that obesity is a disease. I think what has made the biggest difference in final acknowledgement of that is the fact that we can effectively treat it. Because in the past, we can say it all we want, but if there's nothing we can do about it, then no one really wants to say it. And the reason we said it back then was because we wanted to bring attention. We wanted to see if we could mobilize resources to understanding it better. And I think we have. I think we have met that goal. And now I think we're seeing a new era in recognition of that because we have tools to really treat it.
That's interesting.
So,
and by the way, at some point, I'm not going to care. No one cares whether we call it a disease or not. As long as we have treatment, as long as we can fix it, whether you call it a condition or what have you, it's at some point, I don't care about the semantics as much as long as we have treatment options to fix it.
Yeah, the difference, though, from the patient side is because we interview people every week, and we've had several people. We interviewed a gentleman from Australia named James who found out that obesity was a disease and that some of this was not his fault. It was such an emotional resonance that he had been blamed his entire life because he had been an overweight little boy.
Gosh, yeah, that's powerful.
That he was just angry. He was pissed off, honestly, and he had to find, unless he had to get therapy and all this stuff but then when he realized that and he started taking the GLP-1s, the shift in everything of his life, obesity as a disease mattered to him.
That's true. It matters. Actually, I love that you shared that. That's true.
Yeah, it matters in that it's not my fault. I've always been told, just don't eat so much.
Yeah.
But now, wait, it's a disease? Like that was mind-blowing news.
You've been gaslighted your whole life.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, and we didn't know, right? We didn't know what we didn't know. So now that we have the tools, we can treat it.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it turns into funding for you, that we can figure out, because what do we really have? Two big hammers to treat it right now, right? A lot of other stuff, but semaglutide and tirzepatide, right? Two big hammers. Well,
That's true.
what happens 10 years from now when we have 15?
That's true.
They can be screwdrivers and wrenches and all kinds of different things, all kinds of different tools for you to treat stuff with.
Yeah, if you look at the history of how blood pressure medications were developed or cholesterol medications were developed in the early days, they weren't that great either. Same thing with obesity meds. If we, a lot of people think that the GLP-1s are new and that the treatment options are new, that we finally have drugs for it. And in some ways, we now have really effective hammers, really, really effective hammers. But our oldest weight loss medication that's still available now is probably phentermine, which was FDA approved in 1959.
Oh, wow.
So we've actually been kind of studying this and examining the science behind it, the physiology behind it for more than 50 years. And when you look back at the history of how high blood pressure medications were developed and cholesterol medications were developed, it took that long as well. So I think we're just seeing the development in real time of another chronic disease that's finally seeing its spotlight in the treatment options. And I have no doubt in another 10 or 20 years, we're going to have as many options, injectables and pills, what have you, to also treat obesity just like we treat high blood pressure.
That's awesome.
If there is still high blood pressure, we still have high blood pressure at that point, or people or treating obesity has fixed that too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you wouldn't tell someone with high blood pressure to just diet and exercise when there's medical help, that they can have. So
yeah, can you imagine telling someone to eat less salt? And then you come back and you say, I'm eating less salt. It's like, no, eat less, even less salt.
You must be doing something wrong.
There must be some salt in your diet. Yeah. About that salt too. It's mind-boggling that we don't apply the same type of language to anything else in our lives, whether it's hair or salt or high blood pressure or anything. Eyeglasses. If we have an eye problem and we can't see, we don't tell them, oh, do less reading, don't look at a screen so much. All of that is well and good, but then we also give you eyeglasses so that you can see.
Yeah, exactly. I love your analogies.
So it seems like over the last, 50 years, there's always been a boogeyman around weight, right? It was fat, it was cholesterol, now it's ultra processed foods, it was whatever. Talk to me about this kind of history and this chronic, complex nature of obesity. So is it one thing for everybody? Is there one boogeyman?
It's definitely not, right? It's definitely not. And I'll give you another analogy that I like to use, especially with your viewership, I think. If you imagine, Lorraine, I'm actually going to ask you a personal question. Okay. Is your hair naturally straight or is it wavy? Is it curly?
It's a little curly.
It's a little curly?
Yeah, just enough to be a problem.
So take yourself with beautifully straight hair. I'm born with straight hair. You put both of us in a super humid environment. Your hair is going to get curly, right?
Yes, ma'am.
My hair is still going to be straight. That's genetics.
That's genetics. Yep.
And whether it's hair or how well we tan, whether we tan or we burn, or maybe energy levels or whatnot, or weight, right? How that environment affects you depends on genetics. The only difference between, you probably put in the work this morning to shower and blow dry your hair and straighten it and put in products and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just woke up. And then we both entered into an environment, a humid environment that stressed our genetics.
Yeah.
And what happened was that you reverted back to your genetics. So in the same way, people who are susceptible to obesity have those same genetics. Now we've put them in an environment, whether it's ultra processed foods, stress, different temperatures, we don't really know, right? Because of that stress in the environment, their genetics are really poking through.
Their genetics kicked in. They couldn't overcome.
It couldn't overcome.
It.
Whereas other people's genetics, right? You can stress my hair out. You can stress some people who are naturally thin, what have you, with the most obesogenic environment, all the ultra processed foods. We all have a friend like this. They can eat McDonald's and pizza all day and they never gain weight, right? We can stress them as much as we want. Their genetics are their genetics, and they don't gain weight. Okay. So that's the complexity of obesity, I think, that the heterogeneity of what our genetics are being unmasked by the environment, by a more and more stressful environment, which I think is the only reason why we're seeing the rates of obesity and overweight increase or just stay stable. Because our environment isn't really changing that much, or we just don't have control over our environment. So we have limited ability to change that. And so what's really poking through is the heterogeneity of our genetics.
It's just this complex thing. And I mean, I get people complaining about one thing or another, and I'm like, it doesn't, just because one thing isn't the specific cause doesn't mean you can't improve all the things. So should our healthcare system be better? Yes. Should our food system be better? Yes. Should we be more active? Yes. Should we? They're like, oh no, it's just this. I'm like, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people fall into erroneously, that it's a dichotomy to fix genetics or to fix the environment. And it's not like we can't really fix our genetics. I just use genetics as maybe another word for biology.
CRISPR, maybe we could do something, but
it's our fair enough. But our biology and the hormones, we don't have conscious or explicit control over that. But medications, and certainly to some degree, lifestyle can address those hormones, right? Like if we have better sleep, some of our stress hormones will come down. So some of that is modifiable, but our medications are the ones that have shown the best effect. And really, they've shown the best effect in combination with everything else, with our food, nutrition, our physical activity levels, all of that. So a lot of people present this false dichotomy in that, oh, we shouldn't invest in medications or access to medications. We should really just be fixing our food system, when we should be doing both.
Yeah, two things can be true at the same time.
That's right. That's right.
Well, so we talk about GLP-1s as if they're all one thing, right? It's this sort of Kleenex mentality. All tissues are Kleenexes, right? Or all bandages, bandages are Band-Aids. But there's a lot of subtlety and there's a lot of things going on there. We report on them every week. There's a new, Vikings got this, there's all kinds of things going on up there. Talk to me about what a GLP-1 is, what a GIP is, and are they really different when I see another company doing what looks like to me as a lay person the same thing?
Yeah, it definitely feels like an alphabet soup sometimes.
Yeah.
So the whole body of scientific studies and the biotech industry push now is looking at these gut hormones. So that's the umbrella, really. It's all these gut hormones. GLP-1 is one. It stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. And the other one is GIP, right? That's in tirzepatide, and that stands for glucose insulinotropic polypeptide, glucose-stimulated insulinotropic polypeptide. It's an alphabet soup, right? Both of these peptides are gut hormones because when we eat, our body produces them. And so there's another term, just to throw in another one in there, called NUSH, which stands for, it's NUSH, nutrient stimulated hormones. So we've created a new umbrella term called noosh. And that's because some of the hormones that are coming into play with the biotech industry aren't specifically incretins or the GLP-1s. We use GLP-1s as an umbrella term, but it's not.
You've got like amylins and all kinds
amylin,
of
glucagon. Yeah, so there's these other hormones that are also at play that don't perfectly fit into this umbrella term of the GLP-1. So nutrient stimulated hormones is the term we're using now. And by and large, our medications now, whether it's semaglutide, tirzepatide, liraglutide, dulaglutide, they work for weight loss and diabetes control, but they work for weight loss, particularly by controlling food intake. Okay, right? It helps you feel fuller in between meals. That is a term called satiety. And it helps you feel fuller while you're eating a meal. And that's a term we call satiation. There's a little bit of academic nuance there. They're not exactly the same, but overall, it's that fullness feeling that it helps with. So it decreases food intake through that fullness improvement. And as you guys are probably seeing from people, it helps with food noise and cravings and that mental relationship with food, which we haven't quite, figured out yet how or why, but we're studying that too. But that's all on the food intake side. And what we're seeing nowadays is that there are people coming in eating 500 calories a day and they're not losing weight. Maybe they've already lost weight, but they still want to lose more. There's still more to go, but they're already eating very little. And so it's a question of, are we going to keep trying to push your food intake down more and more and just get you into like a starvation space? I don't know. It seems crazy, but maybe it's okay. There are nutrition studies looking at fasting, of course, whether it's intermittent fasting or the fast mimicking diet, where you do these short periods of fasts. And so maybe there is some benefit to 0 calorie intake. But we're looking at that as perhaps a ceiling of effect of just hormones looking. If we reduce and change all of the levels of these hormones, are we just going to keep reducing intake over and over again? The answer is no. The answer to that is no. We need to figure out how to increase metabolism effectively, increase your energy expenditure, or in some ways change the biology so that your body isn't storing it as much in your adipose tissue. Maybe it's storing it differently, like in glycogen in your muscles. Maybe we're increasing the accessibility to those stores. A lot of people feel like they're just holding on to fat. And even if they run a marathon or they're exercising, then their body is really mobilizing energy stores from their muscle or their liver, which is great too, muscles or liver, but it's still not accessing the fat. So I think the science nowadays, especially focusing on anything that has glucagon in it, like retatrutide, really looks at mobilizing energy from the fat storage.
So really it's about making the engine more efficient.
Actually less efficient.
Less efficient. Oh.
Well,
If you think about it, when we weight loss or the state of excess adiposity, excess weight is really a state of true energy efficiency.
Right. The body wants to keep you alive. The body wants to make sure you are going to make it through the winter, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
it might get rid of everything else through the liver, through the
muscles or what have you, anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Where, we don't want to lose our muscle. We want to mobilize that fat, have that fat get out.
Yeah. Yeah. And fat is one of the most efficient energy stores. You break down one molecule of fat and you get like a lot of energy molecules out of it, ATP specifically. And so the body likes to store things as fat because it knows it can get a lot out of it when it breaks it down. And the state of obesity, especially after you've already lost some weight, actually your body adapts metabolically to be more energy efficient.
Mm.
And we know this because we measure people's metabolic rates. We measure your metabolic rate when you're 200 pounds. We measure your metabolic rate when you're 150 pounds. And then we look at a person who's lost those 50 pounds versus a person who's always been 150 pounds. And the person who's always been 150 pounds has a higher metabolism. The person who's lost the 50 pounds down to 150 is actually more energy efficient now because they've adapted.
So when I tell you that at 286, those first 20 pounds were pretty easy to get rid of. When I got to 200, so I was 80 pounds down the last 20 pounds. I'm 184 right now. Those last 20 pounds took a long time. They were hard.
It's hard because your body's become more energy efficient. Among other things, we also have noted in trials or studies that hunger hormones will go up when you lose weight, particularly in the setting of diet-induced weight loss or years after bariatric surgery. We see that. I haven't seen, there must be data out there for weight loss medications, but I haven't seen it yet. And I think part of that is because the medications themselves help to reduce those types of hunger hormones.
I mean, that'd be my guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're so effective.
Yeah, every diet I've ever gone on, I've been hungry, right? I lose 10, 15 pounds, but I'm hungry. Like I'm always wanting to eat. And now tirzepatide, I don't. Occasionally now at a maintenance level, I feel hungry at meal times, but otherwise, no. And when I've lost these 50 pounds, so now my body needs less energy. I guess that translates that I need to eat less food, less calories at a lower weight.
That's right. That's right too. And in some ways, the medications help to meet you there. The way I like to think of it is obesity is a problem of energy regulation. That's like the simplest way I can put it. Energy regulation. And energy regulation is really a system of managing our short and long-term energy. Our short-term energy refers to, are we in the fed or fasted state? If we just ate, or has it been 4 hours since we last ate and we've been fasting overnight or whatever? That's what I think of short-term energy. And long-term energy is what I think a lot of people colloquially call as your body weight set point. So I think the disease of obesity starts out as a problem with short-term energy regulation. Like you're eating, you can't really tell you're full, or you need like a lot of food to feel full. And so you always feel like you're kind of in this fasting state, semi-fasting state. And then over time, that develops into a consequence of pushing your body weight set point up higher and higher and higher. What the medications do is it's not that it necessarily targets a lower fat mass piece. It changes that short-term energy regulation, your food relationship, so that, okay, now I'm full. I eat half a sandwich, now I'm full. And then as a downstream consequence of it fixing your food relationship, we're losing weight. So when I think about these meds, I call them weight loss meds because everyone else calls them weight loss meds. But really, I think that the weight loss is just a good beneficial consequence, a downstream consequence of us treating obesity, which is really that energy dysregulation.
So I've heard a lot about the term set point, right? And so can I change my set point to a lower weight? Is that possible?
We don't know. We don't know. It's a great question, right?
I want it to be low. I want you to say yes. Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
It's a great question because, if we think about it in pregnancy, right? We gain weight in pregnancy.
Right.
And then for some of us, we lose back to where we were pre-pregnancy. And so our body knows that when we're pregnant, that's not our new body weight set point. We're pregnant. So our body brings us back down to our usual set point.
Mm-hmm.
But something happens differently when you're not pregnant, who are susceptible to obesity in the setting of pregnancy. They don't lose all their pregnancy weight, right?
I never did. Yeah.
There you go. So there's something about your biology where your body didn't recognize that was just pregnancy weight.
Interesting.
And so we don't know, unfortunately. We don't know what it is that tells our body, like, that's just pregnancy weight. Bring us back down to what we were pre-pregnancy. Someone else had, your friend may have had that biology signal or that biology distinction, but we don't.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely a challenge, and one of the last holy grails, I think, of us trying to figure out, is there anything that we can do to permanently change that? I think that the medications for now are changing it in some way, yes, affecting that set point only for as long as you're taking the medication.
Yeah.
It's changing you permanently. But at the same time, it's not a failure of the medication or a negative characteristic of the medication, limitation of it, because that's true of anything, whether you're on a new diet regimen or an exercise regimen. We have to continue doing that regimen to continue reaping the benefits. Exactly. Right. So it's the same whether it's medication or lifestyle changes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's, one of the most common questions is, well, I have to take this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And my answer is always, well, I want you to take it for as long as the benefits outweigh the potential risks. If something changes in the future, maybe you have a new diagnosis of gut problem, gastroparesis, you have gallstones or what have you, something where the risk is higher now and it may not make as much sense, then we should make a change. Or if your lifestyle changes dramatically. For example, I've had patients who have high stress finance jobs, iBankers and whatnot. And when they retire, everything else kind of falls away. The stress falls away. They're not going out and drinking for happy hour all the time. They're not doing high client dinners every weekend. It's like their lifestyle totally changes. So we're working with a different person and a different set of issues. In those scenarios, maybe, we don't need the medication anymore, or maybe we don't need as much as anymore. Maybe the doses can change. So I think that conversation is still evolving. For the most part, I tell people, if it's working, you keep doing what's working. I'll give you another analogy that I like to share with patients too, which is, when you're driving a car, to go from 0 to 60, you have to push the pedal.
Right.
And to stay at 60, you have to keep your foot on the pedal. And whether that pedal is a new nutrition strategy or a physical activity regimen or medication or meditation or what have you, something, that pedal is all of the above. And you have to continue doing it if you want to stay running at 60 miles per hour.
And see, I use the car analogy all the time with people, and they're like,
you do.
Well, it's a slight variation on it, because I think right now in obesity medicine with GLP-1s, we're basically at the Model T era. And all those the Model T era of cars, right? They work.
About cars. I'm in New York City.
The Model Ts were the original Fords from the 30s, right? They worked, right? Old school, kind of just, and all those other ones, Fender Mean and all that existed, but you didn't really want to go for a drive with those too much. And if you look at where Model Ts were and you advance forward 50 years to the 1980s, the change that was able to happen because of science and math and research and all of those things, I think it'll be that much or more for obesity meds.
That's a great analogy. I like that too. Now that I
Yeah,
know what
so-
that is, I like that too. You're right.
Yeah.
So is it going to be forever? Well, do I think I'll be on some form of medication for a GLP-1 forever? Probably. Will it be tirzepatide or semaglutide? Probably not. I think something else comes along, probably a
Or
pill,
forglipron.
probably whatever. I think the cost comes down, and I think what treatment looks like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now is completely different.
Yeah. I think
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I mean, I think that the treatment is going to be a version of these medications, but the way people access it is going to be different.
Hmm.
I think right now we all need a prescription to get the medication, which is a good thing, right? This should be well regulated for safety reasons. In 10, 20, 30 years, we may still need that prescription, but we're going to access that differently. And that means through telehealth platforms, perhaps. I think about birth control too sometimes, where in the past we had to go see our OBGYN, get a physical exam, you send in the prescription, you pick it up 3 days later. It's all very physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then lately you have more telehealth companies popping up where you can access it by delivery. It gets delivered to your door by you filling out a questionnaire and commenting, yeah, I'm a healthy young person. I haven't had any blood clots. I don't smoke. And for the proportion of the population where it's generally safe, we get that birth control delivered to our door with a piece of chocolate, and it can be as easy as that. And that's okay. If we can find a point where for this proportion of the population, it is safe enough to have some of those barriers pulled down, then why not? I think what care delivery is going to have to understand in the next 5 years, sooner than later, hopefully, is that there are some people who really need to be seen in person still, who need to be seen at our best practices academic centers.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are others who don't have to and shouldn't wait 6 months to see someone like me. They should be able to access care because they don't have diabetes. They don't even have prediabetes. They're just really generally concerned about their weight and they want to try this medication. They're generally healthy. Otherwise, they are well educated, just like your viewership, and they know what they're reading. They understand the risks and benefits of it, and they want to try it out through a platform where they never see a doctor.
Is there a world where that'd be awesome? Is there a world where it becomes more proactive instead of just reactive? Instead of you've got a BMI of 50, now you need.
I love that question. I love that question because that really gets into preventative health. And actually that gets into real healthcare. I say this all the time that in doctors, we treat sick people, right? Doctors wait until you're sick and then we figure out, we run tests, we diagnose you, and then we treat you. And that's what I would call sick care, not health care. Primary care doctors are originally intended to be at that point of prevention, where you see someone, nothing bad has happened, we're doing things to help preserve health. That's healthcare. For the rest of us who don't do primary care, I'm seeing people after something bad has happened. Okay. And it's reactive. It's exactly as you say, it's reactionary medicine. At what point can we become proactive? I would argue that treating obesity is a step towards being proactive, because then you're preventing blood pressure, you're preventing diabetes, you're preventing heart attacks and strokes. So it's steps towards preventative healthcare. Can we become even more proactive than that, working more upstream of the problem? I think we should and we can. And that really, I think, gets to the questions of what is our built environment? What is our lifestyles like? What is our food system? What is it that is triggering and stressing people who have the predisposition to obesity because of genetics to develop obesity? Is there something about our food system that stresses those biologies? It's going to take a while because there's so many other incentives where the the monetary incentive to increase food intake and have that rewarding relationship with food has to be preserved for some of these companies to exist, right? To exist and to survive and to thrive. And I think because of those other incentives, it's going to be hard to be proactive.
I agree with you. I mean, what I would say is that I've worked in and around the grocery business for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There is a world that if we could teach the people running the businesses that, yeah, they may be selling less food, but they'd be selling a higher quality food, and their actual dollar sales might not be any different if you're selling a better product versus a lot of cheap products.
I hear you, and I agree with that sentiment.
It's not to say it's an easy thing, because it's
I
not.
agree with that sentiment, but for them, it's always volume too, right?
Yeah, it
It's like,
is.
okay, well, we could do quality foods, but also do more. Why not more? Why not more and more and more?
But the other side is I really believe the price for these will come down probably on orforglipron because the Wall Street forces the volume.
I think things will come down eventually. Things will come down when you have a true free market, right? Laissez-faire economics. But because of our regulations and middlemen, it's going to take a little while for that to come down.
So
I generally think that compounding, because it's been the most direct competition these manufacturers have seen, has aided in bringing down that direct-to-consumer price. Whether it's going to continue compounding or not remains to be seen. That's really a question for our legal authorities more than anything else, and Congress. But yes, I agree that competition is going to be the key to bringing that down.
Well, so you did a paper not too long ago, the associations between class 1, 2, or 3 obesity and health outcomes. Talk to us about that.
So this was a population level study where we looked at thousands and thousands of people with different levels of obesity and associated it to looked at the relationship between that degree of obesity with 16 related comorbidities or conditions or health conditions. And that ranges the gamut from fatty liver to stroke to gallstones, kind of all of these pieces. And what I think it really highlights for us is the severity of weight, because excess weight for one person is different from excess weight for another. Part of it depends on the context, right? The mental relationships with food, or your upbringing. When did it start? Childhood, adulthood, that onset, and also how much. Is it to a degree that you are generally uncomfortable, or is it to a degree that everyone stares at you when you walk into the room? Like there's so many different levels of consequences. And from the medical side of it, we also like to look at, okay, is it just, an extra 10 pounds or 20 pounds? What's your risk of diabetes and fatty liver and heart disease and all that? Or are we looking at what we call severe obesity, which is class 3. That is defined by a body mass index of 40 or greater, or the BMI is 40 or greater. And those are individuals who are really carrying a lot of excess weight. And that at that level, we're seeing a much higher risk of heart disease, heart attacks, heart failure, diabetes, sleep apnea was our biggest, red alarm, and all of these and all of the 16 conditions that we looked at.
Well, and that hazard ratio for sleep apnea was like 11 or 12, right? Yeah. And what does that translate into for people? What does that mean?
That means that, over a given period of time, if you have a BMI of 40 or greater compared to someone with a normal BMI, your risk of having sleep apnea is 10 times more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is where it ends up getting approved for Medicare and insurance.
Let's hope. Thank goodness. Let's hope so. But yes. It just really shows too the whether it's a root cause or contributor to all of these conditions, like obesity is central to all of these discussions. And whether you're a sleep doctor or a hepatologist, a gastroenterologist, or an endocrinologist who treats diabetes, no matter what, the person in front of you is going to have there's a high chance that the person in front of you is going to have weight as the root issue that's causing the problem that makes the person come in to see you today. And I think it speaks to also a medical system efficiency question, because if I were going to ask my system to pay for CPAP machines for everyone versus orforglipron, a pill, I think I would probably pay for the pill, because that's going to fix 16 other conditions. And it's probably going to be cheaper too, at least to manufacture.
Well, and that begs the question of, what should, or what would you hope insurers and policymakers take away from all of this?
I think, I think it's clear. I think everyone agrees on the takeaways that yes, obesity is contributing to all of these downstream diseases. We should treat obesity because it has so many benefits, right? It has all of these downstream benefits. It's going to treat other problems, prevent new problems from happening. It is going to preserve health and save us healthcare dollars in the long run. The challenges with insurance companies, I think, is that their mission is not necessarily health outcomes, but affordability. And that affordability is really translated into profitability for them, which
is short-term profit. It's what does the Wall Street say today?
Which is Wall Street and short-term. The key word is short-term, because for them, it's not looking at the whole body of a person's lifetime and, okay, that person won't get diabetes in 5 years. For them, it's more of, well, I don't know if that person is still going to be a cost in 5 years. So I can't look at this investment today. I want to know what that return on investment is in a year. But we know that health doesn't improve that much in 1 year, at least not to the degree that they're looking for. I think what we decide as goalposts, as a medical community, as a payer system, as a healthcare system, needs to change. Otherwise, we're going to keep talking ourselves into circles with the same 3 stakeholders and not really coming to any kind of solution.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you're out there a good bit on social media. I know you're on X. I see you on LinkedIn pretty frequently. Talk to me about the importance of doctors and kind of having that public conversation.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I feel like sometimes, we do all this good stuff and science and research, but we don't communicate it. We're such bad communicators. Lorraine, you're in marketing. Communication is everything, right?
Right.
If we saw this with the COVID pandemic, if we know the facts and the science, but we don't communicate it, then it's just as well as something that we should never have done, right? And so what I have found, especially in the social media world, is that the louder you are, the righter you seem to be. The more right you seem to be. And that's not right. That's not right. Just because you have a megaphone doesn't mean that everything you say is correct. So I think it's actually something that we scientists need to do better. We need to be louder. We need to be better at communicating what the science is and what it's not, recognizing this is the limits of our knowledge. We don't know why tirzepatide works for 90% of people, but 1 out of 10 people don't lose weight. We don't know. And we're not going to pretend to have answers that, oh, maybe it's because you didn't do enough exercise, or maybe it's because of genetics, and maybe it's because of this. We don't know. Those are all questions that we would like to understand better, but I am not out there to make up answers that people want to hear.
Well, but I think that people need to understand that it's okay with science if we don't know all the answers.
Yeah.
There's been questions for thousands of years. We still don't know the answers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the best thing people can do if you're looking for doctors or like someone to be a partner in this is find someone who's willing to say, I don't know, right? Like your doctor, Christopher, willing to say, I don't know, but let me look into it. If someone is giving you, oh, this is the diet that you should do, it worked for me, it worked for all of these patients that I work with, it's going to work for you. If they're giving you 100% guarantee, that's not how science works. That's not how human biology works.
I love that. So one more patient question, and then we'll be done. What's the one thing you wish every patient knew when they're facing overweight or obesity and they go to talk to their doctor?
One thing.
Or two things. I'm easy.
No, it's a good question. Gosh, you know what, Christopher? I think you said it earlier, actually.
Okay.
You said it earlier, which is it's not your fault.
Yeah.
That is the one thing I think patients need to know. If you're looking for weight management help, it is not your fault. No matter what your parents told you, what friends told you, what social media or what other doctors have told you,
Yeah.
it's not your fault. It is a complex disease. There are so many factors that drive a person's weight, that determines a person's weight, whether that's genetic, biology, hormonal, the environment. And this isn't to say that you have no responsibility, right? It's not like that, but it's more of a pragmatic understanding of, okay, there are some pieces in my world that I have limited control over right now. Right? If I have to order takeout in every day for a year because I'm at a high stress job or I have a new child and I'm juggling 3 different responsibilities as a mom and wife and working CEO or what have you, and I have to do takeout, then I have to do takeout. That doesn't mean you are a worse person for it. That doesn't mean you have a moral failing. It's just that's the reality. And perhaps that's not the healthiest food. We don't really know health yet, what healthiest food is yet, but perhaps that's not the healthiest food, but that's what we're working with. And it's still not your fault that you have to order takeout every day because that's just what you have to do.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you don't deserve medical treatment either. Right?
So where do we find a doctor like you?
I think, it is definitely challenging nowadays because there's a lot of people out there claiming to be weight loss specialists or GLP-1 experts. And again, I want to caution people that if you're seeing too much marketing and not enough science, or if someone's like giving you 100% guarantee, then you have to be suspicious.
Right.
One place that I do direct people to, just to have an extra layer of credentialing, I guess, is the American Board of Obesity Medicine. If they go to abom.org.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, you can.
And we'll put it in the description too.
Yeah, abom.org. It is a website really targeted for practitioners who are looking to become certified in obesity medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So it is literally people like me who, despite 10 years of medical training, decide to do more training, more studying. We sit for another exam of 4 hours to have this certification. So it's people who are really dedicated to this practice. But you can go there and search for someone by location, for someone who's ABOM certified. And I think that's one layer of credentialing that people can look for when they're looking for a partner in their weight management journey.
That's good to know, because people ask us that all the time. My doctor won't listen to me. I'm asking for a GLP-1. Where's a doctor that I could talk to about it? You even start a conversation about it. So this is great. abom.org.
Yep.
And telehealth is an option because I think people forget how big the United States is and that every place isn't a city. It's not Boston and Chicago and Charlotte. And we talk to people all the time that are in Idaho or wherever.
Yeah.
And
South Dakota.
There's 2 doctors. That's it.
Yeah.
So if they don't have access to something else, what do you do?
It's so true. It's so true. And I think telehealth has really changed the conversation around that, because someone in Idaho could feasibly see a doctor who's based in New York, and so I think, you have to do a little bit of, I guess, your own due diligence to examine which of these telehealth companies are more legit than others. I am an advisor for one, so I am a little bit biased, of course, but be cautious of telehealth companies that are just a little bit too hands-off, right? Where they just want your information, then the next screen is like your credit card information and shipping information, and then you get a medication shipped to your door. And there's very little education around it. There's no talk about what the lifestyle might be like, or management of side effects or other pieces. How will your life change on this medication? So look for companies that really provide that 360 level of support, I would say. And I think that that's another way to access obesity care. And
you can mention yours. You work with Roe, right?
I'm an advisor for Roe. Yes, yeah. I'm an advisor for Roe. I don't want to be biased, but yes, I'm an advisor for Roe. I'm an advisor for Novo Nordisk and Lilly, and yes.
Can you advise them on pricing?
I do it all the time. They are so tired of me saying it. I was like, can we bring the price down a little bit more?
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Because they, the prices are so different in America versus other countries.
We have heard that. We see that.
So you wonder what's going on here. And so much of it has to do with other regulations and those middlemen and other players in this space where, the person who provides the product and the person who gets the product, the person who gets the product isn't the person who pays for it. And so we have this like threesome relationship where no one's really perfectly happy. So
we have a lot of layers in our system and everybody makes money off of it. So
right.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want to try to peel back. So
all right. Well, so thank you for joining us, Dr. Tchang. It's been great. I'll leave all of Dr. Chang's social medias in the description if you want to go out and follow her on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever. There's a lot of stuff that she does and she's published. If you want to read her papers, there's a lot of great stuff out there as well. If you want to dive deep into it. And that's us for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Dr. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. It'll alert you every time we do something cool, like have an interview with Dr. Tchang. My name is Christopher Durham.
I'm Lorraine Durham.
We're the Downsized. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.